Well, welcome everyone today to another Facebook Live post by AgileDad. I'm Jacob, and we've got Stephanie on the line too to go ahead and actually review some recent topics that we thought were quite valuable. Stephanie has actually been working with quite a few Scrum Masters lately, and had a post that was quite poignant about how to go ahead and help a Scrum Master to be a little bit more successful. Stephanie, do you mind introducing yourself to anyone who's actually joining us today for the first time?
Hi, good morning. I am Stephanie Lindstrom. I am a certified Scrum Master. I am a coach and trainer with AgileDad. I am based in the Tampa Bay area, so working with companies here locally as well as other parts around the country. So glad you guys were able to join us, and we'll look forward to a conversation today.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephanie. It's always a pleasure working with you. Now, anyone joining us live, you're welcome to go ahead and actually put some comments in the field, and we'll be happy to go ahead and answer your questions in line. So we had a few topics that we want to go ahead and address today. You know, that Scrum Master position, it's an interesting one, and it's one that in many organizations, so you have to really be able to help someone to be as successful as possible with that position, right? So there's a lot of things that help you be successful and some things to kind of avoid, right? Let's dive into it a little bit. One of the topics that oftentimes is difficult, mainly because of the traditional way that things get approached in organizations, is the motivation of a team, right? And a lot of managers and a lot of other people believe that they need to have a little bit more of a command and control method with their teams or with the individuals that they work with. How is that different with a Scrum Master, Stephanie?
So one of the things that I like to talk with a Scrum Master about, whether or not they're a certified Scrum Master, new to the position, or they've been in the role a while, is really expressing the true core value that the Scrum Master is the servant leader. That really, I know the term sounds a little intense, but really all it means is you're trying to motivate your team to empower them to be self-organizing. This will take the Scrum Master role more as a facilitator working with the team to help them, the team, become problem solvers themselves. They will identify their own impediments, and then the Scrum Master will help them find ways to solutions so the team can work to those solutions to get past those impediments, problems that they're having, and really work with the team to communicate amongst each other, because a lot of those things may come up internally that are not external barriers.
Very good. You know, I like what you've mentioned there. It's a matter of, you know, when they're being that servant leader, it's not that they're directing everything that's going on, but they're trying to go ahead and enable success, right?
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes there's a misconception between the idea of self-organizing and the concept of self-managing, right? There's still direction that's needed for the team, but the self-organization allows them to determine, how am I going about my job, right? What tools do I have in order to be successful? And that Scrum Master is really the person who's helping to go ahead and motivate the team to be able to see what's needed, and if they don't have those tools, to be able to go ahead and move forward. Now, a significant aspect of what a Scrum Master does, and we teach this in a lot of our classes, is, you know, that time that the Scrum Master has when they're not working directly with the team, we encourage them to work together with the product owner to go ahead and refine the product backlog. Why is it so successful, Stephanie, that a Scrum Master works together with the product owner to get those details refined for the team?
Sure. So the Scrum Master is in direct contact with the team on a daily basis. The product owner is in constant contact with the stakeholders, being internal from a leadership perspective, as well as from an external customer perspective. So it's really critical that the Scrum Master is working with the product owner so the product owner can say, hey, I have a stakeholder that wants X, Y, and Z, and they need it in this certain time box. But the Scrum Master, knowing what the team's velocity is, knowing what the team already has in the backlog, is able to help guide the product owner in a prioritization of what is going to be coming in the next, let's say, 3 sprints. So it's really, it is a very critical communication between those two individuals.
Excellent. I like that you mentioned that, right? The forward looking is what you really want to go ahead and see, because while the team gets very hyper focused on the current sprint or current iteration that they're working on, the product owner definitely wants to see a little bit of, you know, vision going forward, right? And in order for that to go ahead and happen, there needs to be some details laid out, and there needs to be some of that estimation that happens. And if they don't have it prepared for the team to even look at, and at least give them some t-shirt sizing or something, it's going to be difficult to have the right expectations set with stakeholders. So I like that you've actually mentioned that. So let's talk about a couple of other topics. You know, listening is a very interesting skill, right? So at times I believe I'm a good listener. Other times I find myself saying what a lot. So maybe it's with my kids or whatever the case might be. I don't know. But listening, that skill is quite intricate in what helps someone to be successful, right? And in listening to that team, I think you mentioned something about being understanding, being forgiving, and being nimble as to how you approach things. Tell me a little bit of what you're talking about there, because that's a very interesting combination of characteristics that you describe.
Sure. So when we talk about being, so this is from a Scrum Master to their interaction with a team perspective. So a team may be in the middle of a sprint and something came up. It might be a fire that has to be put out, or it might be a project that was estimated incorrectly. So be understanding when the team comes to you and says, hey, I really don't think this is going to be able to get done in this sprint. All right, well, first of all, as long as there is a why, never have a problem with that conversation that you're having with the team. As long as there's a reason other than playing solitaire for 4 hours, right? then that's okay.
That man's playing Galaga, right? So yes.
So as a Scrum Master, that understanding and your ability to be nimble and forgiving, it's going to not only help the team move forward and really increase productivity, because if the team really says this cannot be done, okay, let's maybe do a split and then we'll work on the other part in the next sprint. Not a big deal. And it also is going to enable that level of trust with you and your team, that they feel comfortable coming to you to tell you this. You don't want to hear that something went horribly wrong in your sprint review. It would be great to hear it on day 3 of your sprint that something's not going right. So that way you're able to adapt, adjust, being nimble, and you have that trust of the team that they feel comfortable talking to you when something arises versus waiting until the fire drill to come.
Agreed. You know, that's crucial, I think, because when you're looking at this with a development team, you know, so regardless of what you're developing, what really needs to happen is that interaction with the Scrum Master in saying that something's not going right. You know, we always look at the high performing team and they're trying to go ahead and resolve things as early as possible, but that daily stand up, if that's when we're actually hearing about it, great, right? That's wonderful. That's the intent behind it. If it's happening during the day that they're troubleshooting things and obstacles have come up, even better, right? So, but we definitely don't want things to come up just at the end of the sprint that actually identify when things are problematic, right? So look at that latest responsible moment, right? The daily stand-up is that latest responsible moment, so that if we haven't had an opportunity to listen to what's going on and what problems are happening, that's the time frame that should actually be occurring. So very good. You know, there's another topic that's quite interesting, because You mentioned at times that, things don't go quite right. So I think everyone will have a better idea of that within their own teams, because you know that when commitment happens, the things oftentimes change, right? And you hear the comment made that if you're looking at trying to make sure your sprints are successful, don't allow things to change within the sprint. And then we look a little bit at reality as teams are getting used to managing the work that's going on, right? And we have things that potentially change. So then the statements that people make, like, the only reason why you should change within your sprint is, um, an act of God, terrorism, or some other crazy thing, right? I mean, it doesn't happen that often that there's that drastic of things that occur, but production issues occur, and customers end up having pretty significant concerns, and sometimes there's things that we didn't anticipate, and we have to go in and look at those and see, how is it that we manage those, and when do we go ahead and say this is something we can do now versus later, right? I think that brings an interesting balance of when do we say no, right? And when does the team say no, that's not something we can go ahead and accommodate? And especially when it's to the product owner that we happen to be working closely with. Um, how do we do that, Stephanie? What do we do to be able to set those expectations with the product owner? And then also, how do we help the product owner set those expectations with stakeholders to let them know when it is or is not appropriate to go ahead and actually say yes or no to adding new items?
Sure. So this is such a critical piece, because in so many organizations, the sprint is not going to always go as planned. There is going to be a VP that is going to need a certain report that needs to be done, and no questions asked. It has to be done. We know things like that are going to come up, and that's okay. But one thing that when I work with the Scrum Master is really empowering them to speak with their product owner from the beginning and the get-go, to say, hey, when things like this come up, I understand stakeholders are going to have things pulled in. That's fine. We can work to accommodate it. We may say, all right, we understand that report is really important, but do they need it in the next, let's say you're in the middle of a sprint, so do they need it in the next 6 days? Or is it something that could move, that they could get in a week and a half? So really setting that level of expectation that the Scrum Master is very aware of the velocity of their team. They know the capacity and the number of hours and the amount of work that can be done within a sprint. And I think that it's important for the Scrum Master to communicate to the product owner. I know that people work 80 hours a week, and sometimes you have to do that, but there are only so many hours in the day. So it's really prioritizing, seeing what because really, you're really not saying no forever. You're saying no, maybe not right now. Let's do it in the next sprint, the next 2 sprints. Oh, this needs to be done by the end of the quarter. Okay, well, we can push that out a couple sprints then, so my team can plan for it. So I think that that's just a very critical conversation that the Scrum Master and the product owner have from the beginning, so that level of expectations.
No, that's very good. And I like that you brought that up, right? Because there's always going to be those situations where someone says that there's something that's very important that's come up at the last minute, right? We're going to always hear about that. So, and those expectations to be able to say, does this really need to happen right now, right? And I think that's one thing that helps people to say, well, no, not right now. I mean, yet I mean like the next possible thing that you work on. Well, that means it goes to the backlog, right? Instead of stopping all progress and trying to go ahead and work on that now, right? I think most people will not talk about this, but understand a little bit of the decrease in productivity that happens with task switching, right? And we want to make sure that that gets minimized as best as possible, so then we can have the best possible success with our teams, right? That idea of no, some people think it's no, you're never getting anything, or no, you can't have a cookie, right? And it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with no, it doesn't make sense to do it right now. So we're asking people to use a little bit of strategy, right? So the Scrum Master is oftentimes prompting the product owner to think about short-term and long-term strategy when they're asking those questions and pushing back and saying, no, it shouldn't interrupt right now. Or we talked about only bringing in 2 issues that would potentially interrupt. This is issue number 3, right? The team does not have the capacity to go ahead and bring this in. So I think that's very important to go ahead and do that. Okay.
So one thing, Jacob, I wanted to add is I'm currently working with a team that is in pretty constant fire drill mode. And one of the things that their Scrum Master and product owner are trying to do, it's sometimes this is a little bit bigger than just a team, right? It's a culture bit of a shift within an organization. So they are working with their leadership and executives to make them understand the product owner is working very closely to make this leadership team understand that productivity is really heightened when drive-bys do not happen,
Right.
Twice an hour. So I just wanted to put an example on that.
No, good. I appreciate that. Well, very good. Oftentimes as we go through and talk about the success of the Scrum Master, it's oftentimes the glue that actually brings the team together. And with glue, I always think about things that help to motivate and encourage people to participate. Stephanie, I know that I know in your blog post you mentioned something about donuts, and I'm a fan of donuts. I'll tell you that much.
We all are.
Right. So
especially technical teams.
There you go. So it's never a bad thing when you actually can go ahead and encourage a team and encourage them to participate with something that allows them to snack on something, be it snacks or whatever the case might be. I had several teams over my career that I can remember participating in either the stand up where there's lemon bars or something that come in. Or there's the retrospective when there's M&Ms or something else that's actually present there. Something to go ahead and actually keep people active, and a little bit of sugar doesn't help. It doesn't hurt all the time. So
right.
you have to just be aware of the surroundings and the limitations of your team, but it's something that definitely encourages some positive things going on there. So that's
well, and I think too, Jacob, it's really nice with a team. So I have a couple of teams that I work with where they know that when it's retro and sprint planning day and Stephanie's going to be here, they're excited to see me and go through those ceremonies, but they know donuts are coming. And it really, I think too, in addition to what you said, it really creates an environment within the meeting so they feel comfortable. It doesn't feel as stale. It's a little more casual. So
right.
They feel comfortable opening up, especially in a retrospective or a planning. So they're just kind of, it is a nice encouragement.
Very good. Very good. Well, I know those are some of the topics we wanted to go ahead and cover today, and I hope some people have found some of these comments and tips successful or helpful for them. We're going to go ahead and actually wrap up for the day, but what else have you found successful as a Scrum Master position? Feel free to actually, if you're watching this video afterwards, comment. We'll actually watch the comments that are made and go ahead and reply to them. So we're very happy for the people that have joined us today and have chimed in and given us some words of encouragement and things as to comments that we've made. So we hope this is helpful. So we're going to try to go ahead and make these regularly and give some advance notice as to when they're happening so people can go ahead and plan for them. So we appreciate you joining us today with AgileDad. If you have any other questions, if you don't want to directly reach out through the video, you can reach out to us via email, learnmore@agiledad.com. Or you can reach out to us over the phone, where a qualified coach or trainer can answer the phone, 866-94-AGILE. You can actually get someone on the phone you can talk to and say, hey, I've got this problem. How do we address it? Right? So don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to be of assistance, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Stephanie, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye. Thank you so much.
Okay.